Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer who terrorized the Whitechapel district of London in the late 1800s. Despite extensive investigations and countless theories, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains a mystery. The Reign of Terror, attributed to Jack the Ripper, occurred between August and November of 1888. The Whitechapel area, plagued by poverty and prostitution, provided a grim backdrop for the killer's gruesome acts. The 5 confirmed victims were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder displayed disturbing signs of brutality, including throat slashing, mutilation, and organ removal. The Metropolitan Police, led by Chief Inspector Frederick Aberline, faced many challenges during the investigation. Modern criminal investigative techniques were in their infancy in the late 19th century. Obviously, DNA used as a forensic tool was still a century away. Even the use of fingerprints to identify individuals was a decade or two away from becoming commonplace. Despite the involvement of hundreds of officers and a myriad of theories, the killer managed to evade capture. The case attracted significant media attention and fueled public hysteria, making it one of the most infamous criminal investigations in history. Montague John Druitt came from an upper-middle-class English background and studied at Winchester College and the University of Oxford. After graduating, he was employed as an assistant schoolmaster at a boarding school and pursued a parallel career in law, qualifying as a barrister in 1885. In November of 1888, Druitt lost his post at the school for reasons that remain unclear. 1 month later, his body was discovered drowned in the River Thames. His death, which was determined to be a suicide, roughly coincided with the end of the murders attributed to Jack the Ripper. In the 1890s, some investigators felt that Druitt could have committed the crimes. These investigative notes became public knowledge in the 1960s and led to the publication of books that proposed him as the murderer. The evidence against him was entirely circumstantial, however, and many writers from the 1970s onward have rejected him as the likely suspect. Police officials from the time of the murders named one of their suspects as Kosminski, and they did not provide a forename. They described him as a Polish Jew that was in an insane asylum. Almost a century after the final murder, the suspect Kosminski was identified as Aaron Kosminski, but there was little evidence to connect him with the Kosminski who was suspected of the murders, and their dates of death were different. In September of 2014, author Russell Edwards claimed in a book called Naming Jack the Ripper to have proved Kosminski's guilt. In 2007, he had purchased a shawl, which he believed to have been left at a murder scene. He gave it to a biochemist to test for DNA. A peer-reviewed article on the DNA analysis was published in the journal Forensic Science in 2019. However, scientists from Innsbruck Medical University have criticized the paper and its conclusions, pointing to a number of mistakes and assumptions made by its authors. A BBC documentary, Jack the Ripper: The Case Reopened, broadcast the same year and presented by Amelia Fox, concluded that Kosminski was the most likely suspect. Francis Tumbulty was an Irish-born American medical quack who earned a small fortune posing as an Indian herb doctor throughout the United States and Canada. He was an eccentric self-promoter, and he was often in trouble with the law. Professional police officers and amateur historical researchers Stuart Evans and Paul Gainey detailed evidence in their 1996 book, Jack the Ripper: First American Serial Killer, that Tumbulty was temporarily resident in a boarding house in the Whitechapel district during the brief period of the murder rampage of Jack the Ripper. They pieced together a case that he may be the culprit. His misogynistic views, obsession with female anatomy, and sudden departure from London after the murders added weight to this candidacy as a suspect. Nonetheless, conclusive evidence connecting him to the crimes is lacking. Walter Sickert was a British painter and printmaker who was a member of the Camden Town group of post-impressionist artists in early 20th century London. He was an important influence on distinctively British styles of avant-garde art in the mid and late 20th century. Sickert's name was put forward as a suspect in the 1970s. Some theorists suggest that his paintings contain clues related to the murders. The evidence supporting this claim is circumstantial, and the theory remains controversial. Dr. Thomas Neil Cream, also known as the Lambeth Poisoner, was a Scottish-Canadian medical doctor and serial killer who poisoned his victims with strychnine. He murdered up to 10 people in 3 countries, targeting mostly lower-class women, prostitutes, and pregnant women seeking abortions. He was convicted and sentenced to death and was hanged on November 15, 1892. Rumors suggested that his last words were a false confession that he was Jack the Ripper. But official records show that he was in prison in Illinois at the time of the Ripper's murders. Even a member of the British royalty was considered by some to be a suspect. Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence and grandson of Queen Victoria. He was rumored to be a member of a secret society that engaged in ritualistic murders. There's no evidence to support this claim, but it has persisted for many years. The identity of Jack the Ripper remains a tantalizing true crime mystery that has eluded resolution for over a century. The lack of definitive evidence, the passage of time, and the destruction of permanent records have hindered progress in solving the case. As you've seen, countless suspects and theories have emerged, each with its own merits and limitations. While advancements in forensic science and historical research may one day shed new light on the identity of Jack the Ripper, it is equally possible that the true identity of this infamous serial killer will forever remain unknown. What are your thoughts? Leave a message below. Please help our channel grow by subscribing and giving this video a like. Click the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode of Mysteries, Legends, and Lies.